speak in English. I understand some Russian because I had to study it back in Poland. Thank you. I'm here to address Russian Americans and Russian exiles on behalf of the Polish community in Washington, D.C. And although I do not represent any specific organization, yes, there is this online community called Polish Global Village. And sometimes you don't even have to have an NGO, you just have a group on Facebook, and this is how I met Dmitry, by the way. So anyway, I just wanted to say I do hope, of course, like you, for Russia without Putin, but it's not enough. Like our colleague from Belarus said, it's not just about Putin, my friends. Russians have to renounce imperialism. You know, it's not enough to have democracy, and that's not enough to replace Putin with another guy. It's not enough for Russians to fight corruption. Russians have to renounce their ages-long tradition of imperialism. Russians have to stop invading neighboring countries. If Russians don't renounce their imperialistic ambitions and traditions, nothing will change really, even if Russia is corruption-free. So please, when Dmitry says, you have allies in America from other ethnic communities, such as Polish Americans or Ukrainian Americans, when you approach us, please identify yourself not just as anti-Putin Russians. Identify yourself, please, as anti-imperialist Russians. You need to renounce that heritage. It's not enough to get rid of Putin. Thank you for applauding that, but this calls for a change of culture, including Russians abroad. I've read articles that say that some Russians fled Russia because they didn't want to serve in the army, but yet they still believe Crimea should belong to Russia, or some other bullshit like this. They have to change. Nothing will change until the Russians themselves renounce, or enough of them at least, because there will always be some, imperialistic or neo-imperialistic maniacs, and such people exist in Poland as well. But the majority of Russians need to renounce their past, just like the Nazi Germans did. It's very simple. So I congratulate you for gathering here in front of your embassy and displaying a flag, white flag that clearly is a distinction and a contrast and a breakaway from your past. I hope that your flag, whatever it is, will be accepted by everybody. But for now, I am proud to be standing in front of a crowd of people holding these white-blue flags. I've seen them on Facebook. They're also displayed in Warsaw, which is the city I came from. So I see that this is a symbol for I'm hoping that it's a symbol not just of the anti-Putinist Russians, but also the anti-imperialist Russians. It has to go together. As Dmitry said, I represent in the United States a Ukrainian organization. I got involved with them again through Facebook, but I've been with them since 2013. It is called the Maidan Monitoring Information Center, and its headquarters are in Kharkiv. The chair of that organization, her name is Natalia Zubar, and I speak with her on and off. And one of these days, soon after the Russians escalated their invasion of Ukraine, I asked Natalia, who lives in Kharkiv, not far from the Russian border, being bombed, by the Russian bombs and missiles. I asked her if she could speak to the Russians. If you could speak to the Russians, I asked her, what would you say? So first of all, she didn't really want to speak to the Russians because she is one of those many Ukrainians who believe that the Russians only understand bullets as arguments. And I am hoping, however, that there are Russians who understand other arguments than just bombs and bullets. So I kind of conveyed that to Natalia, because you have to understand her, suspicions of the Russians. So she thought about it and she said, if I could speak to the Russians, I would tell them, do not fear. And I know it's so obvious, but look, there's this lady in Russia who hears Russian bombs every day in her city. There was one bomb that landed 100 meters from her home. And yet she tells the Russians, do not fear. It is true. You have to overcome your fear of repression and retaliation from the Kremlin mafia. That's how it is. And unfortunately, my friends, that means some of us have to risk our lives. We have to overcome this fear. I wish you courage. I congratulate you on being here in front of all the cameras that are, I'm sure, pointing at you from the Russian embassy. We have to overcome that fear. Otherwise, it's not going to be strong enough. One more point, historical point. I come from Poland. When I lived in Poland, it was a country of about 38 million people. The anti-Soviet, pro-democracy, pro-independence organization at the time was called Solidarity, the Solidarność. In that country of 38 million people, including elderly and the children, 10 million people joined the Solidarity movement, just the Solidarity Union. They actually paid their dues. You need to build an organization or organizations that are big. Do not be afraid to reach out to your neighbors and friends from a long time ago. The worst that can happen is they can tell you, well, I think Russia is just fine under Putin. So you say goodbye and you go to the next one. You need to organize, keep organizing. Solidarity won in Poland after 10 years of struggle. Actually, it was more than 10 years, including the pre-Solidarity opposition movement. So you are up against a long struggle, but that is how you win. You maintain a long, lasting, continuous pressure. You keep organizing, signing people up as members, and you reach out to allies, just like Dmitry said. And we're here for you. Just reach out to not just to leaders, but to individual Polish Americans. Reach out to individual Belarusian Americans. We are waiting for you, but you have to identify yourself as anti-imperialist Russians. Thank you very much. Russia without Putin.